everyone, welcome to another Procreate tutorial. This is the drawing that we will be completing in today's video. If you are new here, I mainly post Procreate tutorials, so if that is something you are interested in, go ahead and subscribe. I also offer extra tutorials over on Patreon. I have that linked in the description below if you want to check that out. Before we get started on today's video, you just need to download the color palette. It's totally free to download. I have it linked in the description below. Just open up the file that downloads on your iPad and it will automatically pop into Procreate so that you can use the same colors as you follow along with the video today. Or you can also mess around with some colors of your own. This is a good drawing to try that out with. We don't use any custom brushes or anything. They're all standard Procreate brushes, so nothing else to download aside from the color palette. I will post the canvas dimensions, color profile, and layers needed on the screen and in the description below so that you can use those to set up your canvas. So take a minute to get everything ready and then come back and we will get started. Okay, here is the color palette that we'll be working with today. So let's just go ahead and get started. We will first just set our background color to this pretty greenish blue color. To do so, we will just go to our layer menu, click on this background color layer, and select the first color on the first row of the color palette to fill it in with that color. Okay, and then we are just going to get started on the sun shape, and then we'll add everything inside of it. So let's just make sure we're on layer 1 here. Let's grab the second color on the top row of the color palette. Let's go to the monoline brush under the calligraphy tab. We'll set it to about 50%. And we're just first going to draw the perfect circle that will be the outline of our sun. Then we'll draw all the lines around it next. So first, just for our perfect circle, we'll just draw a nice circular shape. Hold it down until it turns perfectly smooth and then touch your finger on the screen to make it a perfect circle. Go ahead and just let that go. Grab our arrow tool. Make sure it's set to uniform so that if you need to do any resizing you can and it'll still stay a nice circle. But we are just going to kind of set the size. We want a good amount of room around for our sun rays, but nothing too crazy. We still want a good sized picture inside as well. So let's first turn on snapping in the bottom left here, and we'll snap it to the center of the screen, both from left to right and from top to bottom, so where we see our 2 yellow lines. And then you can kind of decide like what you think of the size. I might lower mine just a little bit more. Just make sure to recenter it. So maybe about right here. Okay. Then we'll just move right along onto the sun rays. So we'll do that on a new layer. So on our layer menu, just add a new layer at the very top. We're going to stay on our black color. We are going to switch our brush to the Studio Pen under the inking category. We'll set that to about 30%. And we are going to turn on a drawing guide. So under the gear icon, under Canvas, click to turn on the drawing guide, click edit drawing guide, and we are going to switch it to this perspective. And then at the top here you can see it says tap to create a vanishing point. So we are going to tap in the very center of our circle here, or roughly so. I'm going to set my color and stuff so I can kind of see the lines a little bit better, but then we're just going to kind of drag this around until we get roughly in the center of this circle here. As far as I know, there's no good way to like center it, but just get roughly there. Anything close is going to be good enough. So I'm going to set it there. I'm going to turn on assisted drawing. And then I'm going to click done. Now just make sure this new layer that we're on now says assisted. It should. If it doesn't, just click on it and turn on drawing assist. And then we are just going to start making our rays. So it's not going to have to be on every line or even every other line. We're just going to kind of, the lines are here, but we don't need to use them essentially. So we're going to start roughly, just a little ways, leaving a little gap in between our circle and where our ray starts. I'm going to push pretty hard in the beginning and then kind of let it taper off. A little more smooth than that, so it's more like this. So adjust your brush size if you need to. if you want them thicker or thinner, just depending on kind of how hard you push. But I'm just going to do that each time. So I'm going to start a little harder, let it taper off on the end, leave the same amount of space between the circle and the start of your ray, and then we're just staggering the lengths of them, never touching the edge of the canvas. So like as we get here and there's a little less room, they'll have to all be a little bit smaller. And then I'm trying to space them pretty evenly, but it's okay if they're not perfect. Just kind of want to focus on the space being the same and the tapering. That's the main thing. And then as you draw, it should just kind of follow these lines or these angles. Sometimes it's not quite perfect and you kind of need to help it along. See, like there, it kind of like snaps to some different angles sometimes. So I just kind of pick the one that makes the most sense. So then, yeah, as we get into like the corners here, I'm going to kind of have them be a little bit longer. To fill in some more space there. Okay, and now we're back at the beginning, so that is going to be it. So now we can go and turn off our drawing guide. So under the gear icon, just click to turn off the drawing guide so we don't have to look at that anymore and we can see a little bit better how it's looking. But it is still active, so if you were to go back in and draw, it still follows those same directions. So that being said, make sure you like the way that looks, and then we'll just go ahead and move on. We are now going to start filling in everything inside of our circle. So to do so, we'll go to our layer menu, click on our circle layer, click on it and turn on reference, add a new layer, drag the new layer behind our circle layer. Okay, so since this one is set to reference, even though we're on a different layer, it's still going to use that same line to fill in. So we're going to grab our third color on the top row and fill in the circle. Okay, then we'll go to our layer menu, click on this layer with our circle on it, and turn on alpha lock. Then we are going to grab the next color in line, the fourth one on the top row. We're going to grab our selection tool, set it to rectangle, and turn on color fill. And with alpha lock turned on, we only draw within the shape that we have laid down, so that's our circle. So I'm just going to start on the way outside here, outside top left, so that we can cover this whole top like half, I would say, maybe a little over half, and then let that go so it fills it in. Click our selection tool to turn it off, grab our next color in line, the fifth one on the top row, and we'll just do the same thing. So selection tool with rectangle and color fill turned on, start outside of our shape and draw in, then we'll cover this top like quarter or so with this really light color. Okay, selection tool to turn that off, and now we just want to blur the colors together so we get a nice gradient in our sky. So to do that, we'll go to our wand icon, click Gaussian blur, and we'll drag this up a ton to like 50 to 60%, somewhere in there, to get a really nice gradient. Okay. Now we'll just move right along. Next up, we'll draw the ground that our mountains will be on. So to do that, we'll go to our layer menu. We're going to add a new layer right above our circle layer. We're going to click on it and set it to a clipping mask. We're going to switch back to our black color, the second one on the top row. Same brush, same size. And we are just going to start like maybe a quarter way up the circle, pretty low here, and draw just a straight horizontal line all the way across. Hold it down until it turns perfectly straight, and then touch your finger on the screen to make it perfectly horizontal. Mine turned into an arc. We'll try that again. So it's a line this time. Hold it down, touch your finger to the screen, and just hold a steady pressure all the way across so you get a nice thick line. And then go ahead and let it go. If you need to adjust it, you can by clicking this line button at the top. Don't touch either of the buttons on the side because that will change it from being horizontal. But if you just need to move it around, you can do so. So if you need to move it up or down on your circle, we just want a little, chunk on the bottom here. Again, maybe a quarter at the most with this line. Okay, and then everything under the line we're going to fill in with like our orangey colors. So to do so, we will go to our layer menu. We want another clipping mask underneath our line layer that's still clipped to the circle. So grab your circle shape, add a new layer right above it, and it should automatically set itself to a clipping mask since it's underneath our other clipping mask. So that is what we want. Then we will grab the first color on the second row of the color palette now. Grab our selection tool again with rectangle and color fill turned on, and we are just going to start kind of on this bottom left, again outside of our circle, and I'm just going to fill until I hit that line like so. Then let it go to fill it in. If you need to move it at all, you can. So with your arrow tool, if you got like too high or too low where there's a gap, you can just move it around so it kind of meets up with your line there and fills in everything below it. Okay. Then we're going to do the same thing to create a gradient that we did before. We'll just stay on this layer. We don't need to turn on alpha lock this time because we're clipped to our circle layer, so we're already just going to stay within that shape, so that's fine. But stay on the same layer here with our first yellow rectangle on it. Grab the next yellowish orange color, the second one on the second row. Selection tool, and we'll again start on the outside. We'll cover, maybe 2/3 of what's showing. Let that go to fill it in. Click your selection tool to turn it back off. Grab the next color, the third color on the second row. Selection tool again, and then we'll just cover this bottom, a little bottom sliver down here, like so. So now we have all three colors. Okay. Now we'll go to our layer menu. We'll click on this layer and we'll turn on alpha lock. That is just because if we left alpha lock off, the top line of this yellow shape would blur up into like our sky, and we don't want that. We want just everything inside the rectangle that we drew to blur. So with alpha lock turned on, that'll help us achieve that. So then go to your wand icon, Gaussian blur again, and we'll drag this up, maybe not as high this time, maybe to like 20% or so, just because it's a smaller shape. We don't need to drag it up as high to get a nice gradient. So 20 to 25, maybe somewhere in there. Like so. Now we will draw our mountains. So to do so, we will go to our layer menu. We will add another new layer. We can still just add it below our like horizon line layer here. That's fine. So right above this rectangle that we just drew, add a layer right there. It should still set itself to a clipping mask. Okay, we will grab the second color on the top row again. Make sure we're still on our studio pen, same size at about 30%. And we are just going to start little by little drawing our mountains. So I'm going to start on the front, smaller ones. So I'm just going to start maybe on the left here, right on my horizon line. Go up and back down to make like our first little mountain, just a small one. Go over, make another kind of small one there. Okay, then I'll go up a little further, make another one. Just drawing pretty quickly to get some nice smooth lines. Kind of go over them a few times if you need to as well. And then maybe this next one I'll draw kind of like here. Okay, so that's kind of like my second set. So I have like my front set, my second set. Let's make a third set. We'll kind of start maybe here, like this. And then along with that, maybe we'll just have a kind of pointy one here. Okay, let's do another one. Maybe there, kind of bigger there. And another one on this side. That will be maybe like my next set. And then we'll do one more. So we have 5 colors. So we wanted 5 sets. So we have 1 set, 2 set, 3 set, 4 set. So we'll do one more kind of in the background here to kind of finish up this little middle bit. Like so. Okay, I made them all a little too high, but they're all in the same layer, so that's kind of fixable for me anyway. So with my arrow tool on freeform, I'm just gonna downgrade them a little bit here, just a smidge. So we have a little bit more room in the sky for some clouds, nothing too crazy, but maybe covering like a little over halfway is good. Maybe nothing more than that. I'm just gonna make sure all my edges still meet up on the sides. And everything looks good. Now, in order to be able to fill our mountains in without doing, without having to like use a brush, we want to be able to color drop them. But they aren't closed on the sides because they're meeting up with our circle, which is on a different layer. So we need to snap our circle, our horizon line, and our mountains all together. So make sure that you like the way those are all looking. So in order to do that, I forgot that these two can't be clipping masks, so let's turn them off. So first let's grab our line layer, turn off clipping mask, grab our eraser tool, and we're just going to erase everything outside of the circle there on the left and right side, so it meets up with it nicely, like so. Okay, then same thing with our mountains layer. So our mountains layer, click on that, turn off clipping mask, and if you have any overlap outside of our circle, just go ahead and erase that on either side. Okay, so now it should look something like this still, and now we can snap our 3 layers together. So our circle layer, our line layer, and our mountains layer. Snap them all together so they're all on one layer. Okay. Then we can click on this layer and set it to a reference again if it's not already. And that way we can use these lines to fill in our mountains. So on a new layer right underneath this one, so add a new layer, drag it below our layer here. Make sure it doesn't set itself to a clipping mask. If it does, go ahead and turn it off. We don't need that. So right underneath our reference layer, we're going to start filling in our mountain colors. So they're all going to be on the same layer. So let's just start in the back with a darkest red one. So the first color on the last row of the color palette, we'll drag and drop into one of our backmost mountains. To fill it in, click this continue filling button at the top and then tap into the other one. So our 2 backmost mountains. Grab our next color, the lighter one, and then color fill is still turned on, so we can just tap into those next 2. Grab our next color, the third one on the bottom row, tap into the next 2. 4th color on the bottom row, tap into the next 2, and finally our lightest color on the bottom row, the 5th one in line, and we'll tap into our frontmost mountain so we get these nice gradients of the mountains. Okay, then we're going to add a little bit of a highlight to them. So to do so, we will go to our layer menu, add a new layer right above this layer that we just created with all of our colors on it. Click on it and set it to a clipping mask so that we are clipped to our mountain shape. Click the N on this layer to open up our options, and we are going to switch the layer style here. So just drag this list and we are going to switch it to hard light. We are going to grab this gray color, the 5th one on the 2nd row. Same pen, and we are just going to add some highlights to the mountains like so. So just on the tips of them, just kind of start somewhere and add them along the edge. I am going to pick kind of like the edge that is, facing the center. So once we get to like the right side here, I'll do the left side of these mountains. So I'm doing the right side of these ones and kind of like the tops a little bit as well. Just kind of whatever works. It doesn't have to be super perfect. It can be kind of nice and a little wobbly here and there is fine. Okay, so once we have a good highlight on each one, see how you like it. We can lower the opacity if they're a little too bright. So I'm going to go to my layer menu, click on this layer, click the HL to open up the options here, and you can just drag the opacity down a little bit if you want to kind of mess around with that. I might stick mine around 80. I think 75 or 80, that looks good. Just so it's not as bright, but if you like them brighter, you can set them to be brighter as well. Okay, next up is the clouds in the sky. So now we'll just go to our layer menu, add a new layer right above the one that we're on. Just a normal layer. Grab our black color, again, the second one on the top row, and same studio pen brush at 30%. And we are just going to make some clouds here by first creating a horizontal line for the base. So start anywhere, maybe towards the right side here. I'm going to draw a horizontal line all the way to the edge of the circle. Hold it down, touch my finger to the screen to make it perfectly horizontal. That'll be the start of my cloud. Then from the edge here, I'm just going to make some curved lines going up until I get to the very edge. So that's my one cloud. I'll maybe make another one in the middle here, kind of on its own. So we see the whole bottom of it. So another horizontal line, hold it down, touch your finger to the screen. And then we'll kind of see all of it. So I'll do a few little bumps and then connect to the other side of the line, like so. And then maybe another one coming off the left side up here. So again, a nice horizontal line, hold it down, touch your finger to the screen. And then going off. Okay. So we drew those on a new layer so that we could like mess around with them if we need to without messing up our other lines. But as soon as you like the way that those look, we are again going to snap them into our reference layer here so that all of our lines are on the same layer still. So snap those together. So now all your lines should be on this layer. Click on it and set it to reference again. Add a new layer. Drag the new layer below our reference layer. Click on it and turn off clipping mask. We don't want that. Okay, so just a brand new layer right under our reference layer. We are going to grab our white color, the fourth one on the second row, and we're just going to drag and drop it into one cloud. Click continue filling and tap into the other two to get those as well. Okay, and then lastly, we're going to create some birds. So to do that, we will just add a new layer. Right above our cloud color layer is fine. We'll grab our black color again, the second one on the top row, same brush. And we're just going to make some classic birds in the sky, the V-shaped birds. So just start anywhere and kind of make these little V shapes. I might just do 3 of kind of varying sizes, like so, nothing crazy. You can lower the size of your pen if you need to, if they end up like a little too dark or anything. Okay, and then very lastly, we're going to add some lines to the ground and the mountains to just kind of add a little bit more detail there to finish our picture. So we are going to first draw the lines on the ground. They're going to be perfectly horizontal lines. We're going to go to our layer menu, find our rectangle layer here, this yellow rectangle that we created for the ground. Add a new layer right above that. Click on it and set it to a clipping mask so it also clips to our circle shape. Okay, same black color, same studio pen, same 30%. We're going to turn on our 2D grid assisted drawing to help us draw perfectly horizontal lines without having to hold them down each time. So to do so, we'll go to our gear icon under canvas, click to turn the drawing guide back on. It should pop up as like your perspective lines, but just click edit drawing guide, and then we'll switch back to 2D grid. The grid size and stuff doesn't matter. Just click to turn on assisted drawing, and then click done. Now again, just make sure this layer that we're on now says assisted. It should, if it doesn't, just click on it, turn on drawing assist. But now I'm just going to zoom in here on the bottom, and as soon as you start drawing, you'll see it just kind of follows a horizontal line. So I'm just going to do that all the way across, some longer, some shorter, just to kind of add a little bit of just detail down here. So some I'll have like go off the edge even. That's totally fine. Nothing too crazy. I'm going to leave it there. And then we're going to do the same thing for the mountains, but we're going to draw them in diagonals. So let's first just add our new layer. So we are going to add our new layer right above our mountain color layer. So find that layer, add a new layer right above it. It is going to be underneath our highlights. So it should automatically set itself to a clipping mask. Click on it and turn on Drawing Assist so we can use our 2D grid. But now we're just going to rotate the 2D grid so that we can draw diagonally instead. So gear icon, click to edit the drawing guide. Then we just want to rotate it. So with this green button at the top, I'm just going to rotate it to the left until I get a just nice diagonal line somewhere around there. Just kind of, it doesn't have to be perfectly 45 degrees. It can be a little less than that, whatever works for you. I'm just going to set mine right about there. Click done. Assisted drawing's already turned on. So now we'll just go in and we will just make some diagonal lines through our mountains. So I'm not touching the edges of any of them this time like we did with our ground. I'm just leaving them right inside like so, just kind of wherever they can fit. So something kind of like that. Then we will just go to our gear icon, turn off the drawing guide so we don't see it anymore. It still is active if you want to add any more lines. But now we can see our picture, and that is it for today's drawing. So I hope you had fun. I hope that you liked the way that yours turned out. If you would like to see more tutorials from me in the future, make sure to subscribe to my channel. Also, feel free to check out my Patreon if you want to get extra tutorials from me over there. Again, it's linked in the description below. If you would like to share your drawing on Instagram, I would love to see it, so go ahead and post it and then tag me so that I can check it out. And while you're there, go ahead and give me a follow so that you can see what I'm working on next. Thanks for watching.